Ooh, hey, how's it going? How's it going, everybody? So yeah, actually, really excited to get into this. That's for sure. Something I've wanted to do for a very long time. Actually, how's it going, everyone? What is up, KT? What is up, Colt? So yeah, you know, like I talked about in that community post a little bit, definitely have a plan here for the I would say for the short term future here in respect to this channel and that is to talk a little bit about Breaking Bad because actually by the time Breaking Bad finished all the way back in 2013. I had not started making YouTube videos yet, and I didn't start making YouTube videos until season 3 of season 3 of Better Call Saul was on the air, so I never got a chance to really talk about Breaking Bad. And it was kind of funny as I was sort of ruminating and contemplating following the end of Better Call Saul as a series, as I was sort of thinking about if there was really any more I wanted to say about Better Call Saul, I kind of found myself really thinking, you know what, I really feel like I've said almost everything I've wanted to say or have had to say about Better Call Saul as a series. I've made so many videos on it, I've discussed it so much at length. I've really put my thoughts out there in respect to how I feel about Better Call Saul as a series. But like I said, because Breaking Bad ended all the way back in 2013, I never really got a chance to talk about Breaking Bad. And as I've talked about in many of my previous videos, I truly could just go on and on and on about this show, you know, forever. I could talk hours and hours and hours about it. So I said to myself, you know, why not? It's something that I want to do. It's something that I really enjoy, and it's something that I'm actually going to plan on doing in the weeks to come. So I kind of just had an epiphany of something I've wanted to do for a really long time, and that is sort of to break down every single episode of Breaking Bad. That's kind of the plan here. And of course, while I've seen these episodes again and again, I never really get sick about talking about them. It's truly a passion of mine that I have, and it's again, it's something I would do even if I didn't even have a YouTube channel. I genuinely enjoy talking about this show any chance I get. So it's something I would do just for the fun of it. So I thought, why not just, you know, break down this show because I never got a chance to do it. And it is kind of cool, you know, when you go back and rewatch Breaking Bad now, like Peter Gould alluded to, following the season 6 finale of Better Call Saul, you really see Breaking Bad in an entirely new light. Eddie Manny, you say I've watched Breaking Bad 7 times and never get sick of the best show of all time. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way at Eddie Manny. You know, I've seen it again and again and again. And yeah, I absolutely love it. And it truly never gets old. It never even becomes work. I mean, sometimes when, you know, it is true, if you're watching a show just to sort of talk about it, either with your friends or colleagues and something like that, and you're not truly into it, at a certain point, I almost feel like it becomes work. But with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, it's truly never work. I always enjoy it. And like I said, because it ended all the way back in 2013, I never really got the chance to talk about it. So that's kind of I guess the announcement here is that I'm planning on talking about every single episode of Breaking Bad, all 5 seasons. That is currently the plan. So yeah, like I said, it's something that I want to do. It's something that I've always wanted to do, and if anyone wants to, you know, go along for the ride, that is totally cool as well. So yeah, that's kind of the plan here. Gonna plan on breaking down every single episode, and we'll just kind of see what happens. You know, like I said, I kind of wish I had more time to make more videos. That's for sure. At Colt, am I going to be reviewing them on the weekly? Yeah, that is definitely the plan. It's going to be more than one a week. That's for sure. It's not going to be every single day. I actually I may do another one tomorrow, but yeah, it's not going to be every single day, but it will be multiple a week, and it will be just whenever I'm available. Because, like I said, I don't want to get too much into my personal life too much, but you know, I really wish I had time to make more videos. I really do. It's something that I really enjoy, but just with the nature of what I'm doing with my life, and it is kind of crazy, you know. You see a 10-20 minute video on YouTube, and for me personally, I mean, maybe there's better editors out there than I am, but it's, you know, for me, it can take hours and hours and hours to make a YouTube video, and it's a lot of just grinding all by yourself in front of a computer screen. And while I do definitely enjoy that, Apple Sura, thank you so much for the super chat. Count me in for the ride. Really appreciate that support for sure. Thank you so much. And yes, and shout out to people like Paul Sura as well as the other people who sort of recommended this to me. Again, I've had many recommendations in this forum to sort of go back and rewatch and reanalyze Breaking Bad. And like I said, the primary format of this will be live streams. And again, it's something that I truly enjoy doing. I really enjoy interacting with the chat. It's something that, you know, I'm a little bit humbled when people say that I kind of have a knack for it, and I'm able to just, I guess, ramble very quickly off the top of my head, and I'm able to recall the show without a lot of notes because I know the show so well. Again, kind of tooting my own horn here a little bit. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that. But yeah, it's always something I've wanted to do. And, you know, I was kind of just, you know, racking my brain about what other things I maybe wanted to do on my YouTube channel. And while it's definitely possible for me to make content revolving around other shows, and I definitely still will, and, you know, I think I truly don't think I was really sort of racking my brain about this the last 2 weeks. I really don't think I'll ever be as passionate about something as I was about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, because it was truly something I was absolutely immersed in and was watching over and over and over again back in, you know, 2013, 14, 15, just for me, like just because I truly enjoyed this universe so much. It wasn't for some sort of ulterior motive or anything like that, or it wasn't to watch it just to make content about it. I truly just am absolutely immersed and enjoy this universe. I think it comes across that way for sure. So again, not trying to get too far ahead of myself here for sure, but you know, eventually I feel like at some point in my life, I'll feel like I have everything that to say I feel like I'll have said everything that I have to say about this universe. At some point, I feel like everything that I want to say will be out there, and there really will be no more to say unless, you know, fingers crossed, Vince Gilligan and or Peter Gould create a new iteration of it. Again, based on my reading of everything, it does not sound like it's going to happen in the near-term future. Vince Gilligan definitely wants to try other projects, and he's absolutely within his right to do so. Of course, he doesn't. He said he more or less doesn't want to be known as a one-trick pony. But yeah, that's kind of the plan here, is to talk about every single episode of Breaking Bad, all 5 seasons. Something I've always really wanted to do, something that I'm unbelievably passionate about, something that I've done with my colleagues already and the people I know in my life. I've discussed these episodes again and again, and I never get sick about discussing them. It's crazy. Every single time you watch Breaking Bad, at least speaking only for myself, I find myself just realizing things and perceiving things that I didn't get on the first watch of Breaking Bad, or the second or third or fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh, to be completely honest. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the plan here for sure. I'm really excited to do this. Really looking forward to discussing this. Even as I was rewatching the pilot episode again, I couldn't even count. I've probably seen this, you know, over a dozen times. But just thinking back to just all of the Better Call Saul references that in some way connect to even this pilot episode. Again, for the pilot, there's not as many as more episodes when more Better Call Saul characters begin to come into the fold in season 2 of Breaking Bad. But yeah, that's kind of the plan here for this channel. And like I said, I don't know if I'll have time to make as many videos about this, but I definitely do enjoy, you know, live streaming and interacting with the chat. I know YouTubers like the Vivid Kiwi are still making videos, so I definitely recommend you checking out his channel if you want to see like more video format content in respect to Better Call Saul and maybe Breaking Bad. But yeah, that's I really enjoy streaming. I really enjoy interacting with the chat, and this is kind of the plan here for the weeks to come. And not to get too retrospective already with this journey, not even has not even begun yet. But like I said, at some point, I feel like I will have said everything I will ever want to say about this universe. But like I said, I never reviewed Breaking Bad. I never really got to discuss it, and there's a lot here I want to say. Yeah, at Colt, still waiting for the new spin-off, Better Fuel Huel. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would love to know how Huel Babineau got from the more slender man that he was when we saw him at the end of season 6 of Better Call Saul to the person who gained probably 150 pounds maybe, around that, when he was working for Saul Goodman in the premiere of season 4 of Breaking Bad, the episode entitled Box Cutter. So Yeah, at Pulse Zero, it'll be nice to get back into talking about how Skyler angers me, lol. Yeah, not to mention, we'll also get to discuss the greatest scene in Breaking Bad history of Skyler singing Happy Birthday, Mr. President to Ted Beneke, which takes place in season 2 of Breaking Bad. So we all get to we get to, I guess, re-experience that as well. And I know how the Vince Gilligan universe is. A lot of people don't like to talk bad about the Vince Gilligan universe, but I don't know. Maybe the Happy Birthday, Mr. President scene gets a mulligan. I'm not sure if people are rewatching. Yeah, at Stone Diodo, you don't rewatch that scene unironically over and over and over again. So yeah, again, it's we'll get to experience all of the, or at least yeah, all of the wonderful scenes in in the Breaking Bad universe for sure. So. At Son of Nothing, I have heard that. I have heard a lot of people say they skip over that scene. I've almost gotten desensitized to it, to tell you the truth. I've seen it so many times that it's not as I mean, cringe for lack of a better word, or at least awkward. It just comes across as very awkward. I know the intentions of the scene were probably, it was well intended, that scene, to set up the affair that would eventually happen between Skyler and Ted Beneke in season 3 of Breaking Bad. But again, in execution, maybe left a little bit to be desired there. So kind of, you fast forward every time, Pulsar. Yeah, I definitely have. I've read that for sure. I know a lot of people refuse to rewatch it, and they skip over it every single time they rewatch. I believe it was the episode entitled Mandela, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was in Mandela. But yeah. Great episode there for sure. So, yeah, I think it was right before Skyler went into labor, if I'm not mistaken. But, yeah. Yeah, I agree. At XA Abud. Again, I can rewatch it again and again and again. So, I absolutely love this show. And can't wait to discuss it here and get the ball rolling. So, that is true during the cold opening scene at Colt. And to tell you the truth, um, also it's kind of funny. Again, I don't want to skip ahead of myself here, but Combo kind of ties into this episode too. In hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, of course, at the time we didn't know it, based on the story of how they acquired the RV. But Combo kind of ties into this episode as well. So it's really kind of crazy to watch it in hindsight. That's for sure. So. But yeah, again, before I get into it here, I was kind of thinking about how I'm gonna sort of my perspective, if you will, in respect to how I talk about this episode, because I mean, when you're watching a show that's currently airing, like season 6 of Better Call Saul, of course you're watching it without knowing what happens in the future. But of course, with me having seen the entire story, hey Nick Russ, how's it going? Of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul in its entirety multiple times, and of course I know everything that happens. I think like everyone watching this right now, I think again I'm just kind of interject my sort of perspective on this show, and I guess I'm sort of gonna kind of, I guess, maybe orient this akin to maybe like a DVD commentary, if you will. Again, I'm not gonna be able to play any of this, of course, for copyright purposes, but I can show the stills here. But yeah, I just kind of, with this episode here, I guess we can sort of get into it right now and start with this opening scene, and here we go. Ooh, but yeah, again, unbelievable scene here for sure. I mean, we're in the middle of the New Mexico desert, and I mean, for yeah, for damn sure at Dread Electric. But I mean, I always tell people with this scene. I mean, I still to this day know people who have never seen Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, and I always tell people, if you want to get hooked on Breaking Bad, just watch the opening scene. Just watch the very first scene before the credits, and how can you not be just fully immersed in this show after this unbelievable cold opening scene? And I was hooked for sure. And again, I think I've told this story a couple of times in a past live stream or two. But again, how I started watching this show to begin with, it was 2012. I was just scrolling through Netflix and kind of looking for something to watch. And I remember someone told me that the guy who was in Malcolm in the Middle is in this new show. And again, it was after season 4 had already ended on television, and he talked about this again. I think it was an interview that he listened to with the "I am the one who knocks" speech from season 4 of Breaking Bad, and So again, I knew Bryan Cranston from Malcolm in the Middle. So again, I thought I listened to that very interesting anecdote and I kind of moved on. But when I was scrolling through Netflix, I of course see that poster, which I essentially posted in the community tab of Bryan Cranston as Walter White with his green shirt tucked into his tidy whitey underwear, holding the gun. And I said to myself, isn't that Bryan Cranston from Malcolm in the Middle? Oh, that's the guy. Again, he didn't even mention that it was Bryan Cranston. Actually, that's something I should have omitted. That when I was told that anecdote about this new show, I did not know that Bryan Cranston was in it. But when I saw that it was the guy from Malcolm in the Middle, I was like, well, I'm absolutely going to watch this. This looks really interesting here. I read the synopsis, and the rest is history. So again, unbelievable scene here when we're Malcolm in the Middle prequel at Sam Fisher for sure. But yeah, unbelievable scene here for sure. We're in the middle of the New Mexico desert. We're of course right around the very first spot that they ever cooked. We see it. Of course the scene is brought back to us in the episode entitled Buried, where Walter White ends up burying his money here in that episode in season 5. And we also, of course, in Tahajali, when the shit finally hits the fan, when Jack Welker confronts Hank and Steve Gomez and Jesse Pinkman when he's being arrested. So again, I think we see this exact shot of these cacti, if that's the right word for this. We see another shot of this. I believe it was in Tahajali or Ozymandias, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, unbelievable scene here. I would run out of superlatives when describing it. Again, unbelievable scene here with Walter White's pants flying through the air, and in a totally iconic image here when he's again. At the time, we didn't know he was fleeing from someone. We weren't really sure. I thought, was he running from someone here? Of course, we now know that he killed the 2 people in the back of the RV. And again, he's very erratically fleeing, if you will. It was from the forest fire, of course, which was started by Emilio's cigarette when he tosses it outside of the window. But yeah, so again, I of course wondered what was going on here. Who are they running from? So much mystery going on. We see this man, this middle-aged man in his underwear driving this RV. There's 2 presumed to be dead bodies in the back seat. We see another passenger in the passenger seat who's passed out. Who are all these people? Tons of questions, of course, driving erratically, and eventually he drives this RV into the ditch. Just unbelievable scene here for sure. Like I talked about, if you know someone who hasn't seen this show, I mean, I don't know if there are a lot of people that are still out there, but I know some who have never seen Breaking Bad. Just tell them to watch the pilot episode, and you're going to be hooked. So, of course, again, at the time, we don't know what's happening here, but we see Walt. He gets out of the RV. He throws his respirator into the distance. It will be discovered at the end of the next episode, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, in Cats in the Bag. But yeah, just great scene here where he then gives his confession to, again, well, no, it's not a confession. He says to all law enforcement entities, this is not an admission of guilt. I am speaking to my family now, sort of giving his last goodbye to, Joe Blow, that's funny. Sort of giving his last goodbye to his family. Again, we don't know the exact context of this scene. It is, he says his last goodbyes to Skyler and to Walt Jr. Walter Jr., you're my big man. Skyler, you are the love of my life. There's going to be some things that you're going to eventually come to know about me. But of course, he gives the confession here. We think that, well, again, I didn't know what was going on at the time, of course. But of course, after he gives his confession, he puts down his wallet and the tape which he records his confession with. He walks down to the road. We hear the sirens blasting in the distance. And he points the gun at this unknown entity again. I presume that it was going to be the police here, that Walter White was going to be in this sort of last stand with the police here in this scene. And of course, it cuts to the credits here. And after the credits scene, when we see, they say, I think 3 weeks ago, it's so 3 weeks prior to the events that are happening right now. I don't know about you, but I, of course, in my head thought, well, we're not going to see what happens here until maybe the end of season 1. That was my initial thought when I saw the opening scene here, at least the scene that takes place after the credits. I don't know about you, but yes, at Stone Yoda, I think was it Marion Dupree or Marlon Dupree or something to that effect? I think it was Marion Dupree. I definitely know Dupree. It was also either like Marlon or Marion was supposed to be his initial name, but I guess they changed it to Pink Man, with the sort of theme of pink being the color of innocence in Breaking Bad. The pink man, the innocent man of Jesse. I think that's sort of what they were going for there when they named him Jesse Pinkman. So yeah, I had Samuel Fisher. In hindsight, Marion Dupree, it just doesn't sort of slide off the tongue like Jesse Pinkman does. It really doesn't. But yeah, just unbelievable show here for sure. Again, I kind of again it's gonna be hard to sort of find every single frame here without playing the episode. But yeah, so when we see this sort of shot here of 3 weeks earlier, and it's kind of crazy. I know this is the pilot episode, and so they're definitely describing more sort of detail. They're not being as subtle as a Better Call Saul was. I feel like we would never see this sort of 3 weeks earlier in Better Call Saul. We would never see this very obvious, glaring fact. I think in Better Call Saul, of course, I think it would have all just been absolutely presumed to be that this, of course, happened earlier. We didn't have to, like, they wouldn't have to paint us a picture. But I guess with this being the very first iteration of this universe ever, the pilot, they wanted to be a little bit more, not as coy, if you will, and to sort of, I don't know, just not be as subtle. I mean, when we go back and watch Better Call Saul, my thinking of just how unbelievably subtle all the details were. I mean, even when that flashback scene took place in the flash forward scene took place to Saul Goodman's life in the episode entitled "Fun and Games" in Better Call Saul, following him breaking up with Kim. We don't see a 1 year later or how much distance in the future this scene takes place. We only see a license plate shot, and I saw a really kind of interesting comment on Reddit how this was much more of a subtle way, and maybe even I don't even know if you will, artistic way of saying 1 year later rather than just writing it in front of our faces here like they do in this episode. But with it being the pilot, I kind of understand. But I've definitely heard Vince Gilligan say in an episode of the Insider podcast how he definitely would rather the fans piece together what's happening on screen instead of just the creators spoon feeding it to them. And Better Call Saul definitely sort of followed that mantra much better than Breaking Bad. And if I'm not mistaken, we see the 3 weeks earlier here, and I think in the next episode, Cats in the Bag, they also say 12 hours previous, 12 hours earlier at the beginning of Act 1 of that episode. But I think that's the last time they do that, and every other time, all of the time manipulations are just for the audience to decipher. Again, it's not unbelievably, like, it's not too subtle. It's not like there's no twist coming or anything like that in respect to time. The episode entitled Rabid Dog comes to mind. That's a discussion for another video. But yeah, so just kind of a little bit of a tangent here in respect to this scene here at the very beginning of Act 1 of this episode. And yeah, I'd say Fisher, that's actually an interesting point because when I first watched Breaking Bad on Netflix way back in 2012, they only had the television cut. It was the 45-minute television cut, and they don't have the extended pilot that they have on the Netflix website now, where there's all these extra scenes here. So it was kind of interesting. I remember the first time I ever watched this pilot, it was only 45 minutes, but at a certain point when Breaking Bad stayed on Netflix, I definitely noticed the pilot got much longer, so there were a couple of scenes here that were not originally displayed on the television copy of this series. So I don't know about you, but my first watching ever of this episode was the television cut. It was not the extended cut here that's around, I think, 58 minutes? Or no, it's, around 58 minutes. What does Brian see? But yeah, so like I said, my first watching ever was the TV cut, not the extra cut. And they're definitely, even right here in the very beginning, there's a couple extra shots here that we see that we did not see in the television copy when we see Walter White get up early in the morning. Again, this is his 50th birthday, getting up in the morning, just like he's done every single day of his life for the first 50 years, being Mr. Chips, being in no way affiliated with the Albuquerque criminal underworld. We're kind of trying to piece together what is the story of this man. Who is this man here? Who is this character who was driving this RV, who put this gun in the back of his underpants, who was apparently facing down the police, apparently, at the beginning of this episode. I mean, we're all trying to piece together this puzzle piece here. We see all of these toys here for what appear to be a newborn child. At least that's I mean, in hindsight, it's pretty damn obvious here. This was definitely a much longer scene than they displayed on the TV cut. There's a couple of scenes added here. Again, I'm not even sure if this very close-up shot of Walter White being recognized for his work on the Nobel Prize in Science from 1985. I don't even know if this was displayed to us in the TV copy, but I definitely remember seeing it the second time here when we see a close-up shot here. So again, we're putting the puzzle pieces together here in respect to who this man is. who we saw in the cold opening scene of this episode. It's then, of course, revealed to us that this is his 50th birthday here. He just turned 50. We see the iconic, again, it's going to be hard to see it's going to be hard to find the exact frames here. Yeah, we see this iconic 50 here written in veggie bacon. We, of course, will also see this in the episode entitled 51 on Walter White's 51st birthday with actual bacon. And, of course, we'll also see it in the episode entitled Live Free or Die in season 5 of Better Call... I think I might be saying Better Call Saul. In season 5 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled 51. I get those mistakes I get those mixed up in my head sometimes. But we see this veggie bacon, or we see the bacon as well in the episode entitled 51. And also we'll see it in episode, like I said, Live Free or Die in the season 5 Breaking Bad premiere. So again, a lot of setup here of Walter White. We learned that, again, I don't know if we can absolutely tell here that Skyler is pregnant. It's a little bit subtle. I'm not 100% sure if it's revealed to us here. Yeah, the bacon smells like Band-Aids. It smells like Band-Aids, absolutely. We get a glimpse into the sort of backstory of Walter White here, where he seems to be, middle-class person, maybe even lower middle class, just based on what we learn about him over the course of this, over the course of the first couple of seasons. We see that he has a son who has, I guess, what is the term you're supposed to use? Differently abled. So who likely requires a lot of, I guess, medical assistance. Again, you would imagine that insurance would cover a lot of it, but again, just trying to show that this is a man who is very middle class, who has a son who is, probably requires a lot of extra medical attention, due to his, disability. And we see, again, I don't know if we learn it here, but we see also that he has a pregnant wife, really putting the puzzle pieces together here of who this man is, Walter White. And of course, following this, that is actually quite a point there. At Beer Aaron, yeah, it's again, you were talking about Skyler. I think she said in this episode that she's not even 40 years old yet. So yeah, she's at least 10 years younger than Walter White is here. So yeah, gotta get rid of this. 1 second. I think that should be taken care of, but yeah, really sort of setting up the backstory here. And we see Walt Jr. go to school with him here. Again, we're sort of putting the puzzle pieces together of who this man is. He's, like Vince Gilligan said, he's this Mr. Chips who never did anything wrong in his life. He's a high school chemistry teacher. And again, I've talked about this in a past video. It's actually kind of crazy, even the sort of very beige, bland colors that he wears. Just no real color, no real life in this man. Even the way they chose to name him, someone talked about how, I guess, they decided to name Jesse Pinkman for being this sort of innocent character. But again, Walter Hartwell White, again, a very boring name, kind of giving him that middle name nomiker of being someone who has a good heart here. A lot of subtle details here that are displayed to us over the course of this episode to set up this character. And yeah, again, we see here absolutely, no respect given to him. Quite the scene here when this student slides his chair across the floor, not giving him any respect whatsoever. Yeah, disrespecting Walter White for sure. And of course, it's truly, again, we're really playing the long game here at Light Years from Home, because it really sort of sets up the dichotomy from when when a student then comes to him, I believe in season 2 of Breaking Bad. When he says to him, "Don't bullshit a bullshitter." So really just, displaying to us the dichotomy of the person that Walter White is right now, someone who's really not confrontational, someone who's kind of a pushover, for lack of a better term, and who he eventually becomes when he basically tells his student to basically kick rocks. Next time apply yourself. I'm not going to pass you just because you ask. So yeah, at Sam Fisher, this guy was absolutely the worst. Yeah, he absolutely was a douche at John 82, for lack of a better term. So yeah, absolutely, he never gets the better of Chad, that's for sure. At Stone Yoda, typical Chad. But yeah, at Bube, wow, that's quite the name there. At Bube Washer Visterham. I apologize if I said that name incorrectly, but yeah, when I first watched this, I did wonder if the guy falling out of the window was the same guy in his chemistry class, but it wasn't the same guy the very first time I watched this. But yeah, I definitely thought that for sure. And I like the prison mic icon there, that's for sure. But yeah, following this again, displaying to us him being a pushover again. We see a scene here of it's a very short scene of Walter White just eating his lunch all by himself here in I don't even know where you would call this, maybe at his desk or I don't know, some sort of teacher's area. But again, this scene was not displayed on the television copy, that's for sure. Again, it was a very sort of scene here. I can understand why they cut it out. We really don't. Again, I wasn't even really sure what they were displaying to us here. Again, he's a very solitary man here. I guess he doesn't even really have many even colleagues at work. He's very solitary. He doesn't really do much. There's not a lot of, real sort of color and emphasis in his life at all. He eats lunch all by himself, I suppose. So this scene was definitely cut out on the television copy here, if I'm not mistaken. And from this scene of him working, it definitely cut right to him working at the car wash with Bogdan. And yeah, eating alone, that is for sure at light years from home. And yeah, it's kind of crazy too how it's crazy how this show just comes full circle here, where this car wash it takes place in the pilot episode, and Walter White will end up buying it in season 4 of Breaking Bad. So yeah, crazy story here for sort of crazy, I guess, in hindsight, just the way this all sort of story comes together here. But again, just really just the premise of this episode is really to just establish this guy as a true pushover, just really just getting kicked again while kicking a man while he's down. That's sort of the premise that I got of this scene here for sure. And yeah, kind of a pretty brutal scene here where he works as a cashier. Again, it's pretty brutal, He works a full-time job as a teacher, but he makes so little money that he also has to work a second job as a cashier at a car wash. Pretty brutal. Again, really sort of setting up the absolutely terrible hand that this man was dealt over the course of his life. And really, again, like I talked about in many of my previous videos, when Walter White starts acting out in the manner that he does this season, there's just so much empathy, at least only speaking for myself. There's so much empathy for this man. You understand the sort of bad hand that he was dealt, where on top of all of these sort of not great cards that he's been dealt in his life, he then, the coup de grace, the piece de resistance, he gets diagnosed with terminal lung cancer at age 50, where he will maybe live a couple of years at best with chemo. And yeah, just really just exemplifying this, this situation that this man finds himself in. When we're learning more and more about him as this episode progresses, of course, another brutal scene here where he ends up washing the, what is this, like a bright orange Corvette of his student Chad, who likely drives this car. Again, if he's in high school, I would imagine that he couldn't afford this car. He was likely bought for him, kind of, displaying to us just the circumstances of birth. We don't choose the families we're born into, and he was definitely born into a family where he could afford to drive a Corvette. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn here. Maybe he did. Sort of. I doubt a sort of high schooler would be able to buy a Corvette for himself back in the year 2008. I mean, maybe if you were a Bitcoin investor in high school, you could, or something like that. But yeah, I mean, just the more and more just sort of shit hands that Walter White has dealt here, where he has to wash the car of his student who gave him absolutely no respect in class. I mean, it's just like I said, it's the coup de grace. It's an absolutely brutal scene. But to tell you the truth, I'm not sure. Again, I don't remember in the television copy of this scene here of a Chad saying hello to Walter White, if this scene was even displayed to us in this episode. I'm not 100% sure if that was on the original TV copy compared to the extended copy that's now on Netflix. Yeah, maybe so at Francis Ray, maybe so. I guess if he was a sort of entrepreneur that way, maybe he could afford a Corvette for himself. I see what you're saying there at Francis Ray. Yeah, at John82. I know, yeah, it would have been nice to see sort of Chad get his comeuppance, but he never got the better of him over the course of Breaking Bad. He did do it to Ken. I don't know if he wasn't able to sort of give the business to every sort of person who wronged him and he crossed paths with over the course of Breaking Bad at John82. But yeah, that would have been something there if he ended up doing that to Chad's car in addition to Ken's car as well. But yeah, again, following this, we just see another scene here of him driving home. We see the handicap placard again. I'm not sure if that scene also was displayed to us in the TV copy. I think this again. It's about almost 10 minutes longer, I want to say, if not more, than the TV copy that was able to play for 1 hour with commercials. So it is yeah, a lot of scenes were cut out on the TV copy. That's for sure. Yeah, Jay Lady, but kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. But yeah, it was just heavily implied that when Jesse went out and in the episode entitled "In the Bags in the River," that Walter White just chemically decomposed Crazy Eight's body in hydrochloric acid in a plastic container, what polyethylene, if that's the right word. But yeah, it was heavily implied that Walter White just decomposed Crazy Eight's body and disposed of him properly, as opposed to Jesse, who very fly-by-night seat of his pants decided to chemically disincorporate Emilio's body in his porcelain bathtub. So, but yeah, he drives home here after again, brutal, after just working a full day as a teacher. Then you have to go work as a car wash cashier who also has to do some wipe downs, even though he told Bogdan that he wasn't doing this, how this is not part of his job description. But again, him being the pushover, he ends up doing it. So it's yeah, we then see, of course, the scene here of Walter White's birthday party. Skyler saying you were so very late. We get, again, this is the first glimpse into Walter White's more extended family. We get to see Skyler's sister Marie here, and also we get to see the infamous character of Hank Schrader as well. Now, I know that most people, I feel like myself included, when you first watch this scene, I mean, you just see just Hank Schrader being this sort of two-dimensional, just real, gotta take care of this. This sort of real, sort of two-dimensional, I don't even know what the sort of word is here, but just kind of like, I mean, I feel like this comes across as like sort of conceited, but just kind of like a sort of two-dimensional, I guess, I don't even know what the word you would use here to describe Hank. Like almost like a just kind of a jerk a little bit. He kind of comes across that way. Yes, it's sort of done in a sort of joking sense, but just kind of a guy who sort of gives Walter White the business here. Someone who's sort of very sort of assured of himself and very confident, but you know, someone who again, he seems very two-dimensional here for sure. Just not a lot of depth and complexity, but of course the grand irony of all of that is over the course of Breaking Bad, who we think Hank Schrader is initially when we first see him here, you know, acting, you know, with a lot of vibrato, being very loud, showing his gun, ostentatious. That's a great word at J Ladybug. That's a good word. You know, very ostentatious, very loud, you know, very vulgar, kind of a again, I don't even know what the right word is. Oh, Biff, yeah, at Richie MC. I see what you're saying there. Yeah, again, there's definitely a sort of word there, but yeah, absolutely. At oh god, that name at Bube Washin Visterham. Yeah, his character arc and his character development was just absolutely unbelievable. Where you, yeah, crass, again, great words here. Again, there's definitely a word out there that sort of sums up his character perfectly. But yeah, ostentatious, craft, oh yeah, ostentatious meathead. Yeah, that is. I didn't sort of want to say that. I almost wanted to say sort of like a, I don't know. I mean, it would come across as so like pretentious if I called, like, I don't know, uncouth or something like that, or like, I don't even want to say a word like a Philistine or something. But I feel like those words are so pretentious. But yeah, just a very two-dimensional character. Yeah, boisterous. These are all great words. But again, the point I'm trying to get at here is, again, very vulgar, very loud, a lot of confidence. The opposite of Walter White. Someone who's very assured of himself. Someone who likely very much knows who he is very comfortable with himself. So yeah, just a great scene here where we see him showing off the gun to Walter Jr. Walt Jr. of course finds it very cool, but you know, we see Walt being not very comfortable here with his son playing with a gun. Yeah, a D-pad kind of for sure. You know, we see Walt holding the gun here as well. Hank's kind of giving him the business, sort of making fun of him. What does he call him here? Like Keith Richards with a glass of warm milk, something like that. That's what he sort of calls Walter White when he's holding that gun. So yeah, really giving him the business here. Takes the beer out of his hand and toasts the whole room. Kind of a funny scene here for sure. You know, really, you know, being a little bit sort of self-centered here. That's definitely the way the character was written for sure, to sort of juxtapose his personality to that of Walter White's. But yeah, again, of course, following this toast here, we then see the scene that really gets the ball rolling here, that really sort of the memory that gets ingrained in Walter White's mind, where we see Hank Schrader on the news, being interviewed by the news following him busting a meth lab here. Again, it's going to be hard to find these exact stills where I want to find them, but let's see where I can find them here. Yeah, we see, you know, this is sort of what gets the ball rolling here. We see Walter White just being absolutely just taken aback by, you know, the amount of money that we see in the meth bust here. It's around $700,000, if I'm not mistaken, right around that $700,000 mark. And as Hank says, it's easy money until we catch you. And really again, foreshadowing where this story is eventually going to go with this meth lab bust, with what we see at the very beginning of this episode. But yeah, really getting the ball rolling here on this story for sure. And of course, yeah, the big sort of money shot piece of dialogue here too, where Hank says to Walt, just say the word and I'll take you on a ride along, or one day get some excitement in your life. And of course, Walt says maybe Sunday. And of course, this scene was displayed to us when Walt goes back to his house to get the ricin. I believe it was in the finale in Felina where he sort of has that brief moment of introspection where he's in his, I guess, living room, where the location of where his living room was in his now gutted house. And he sort of recalls back to this scene right here when Hank says, I'll take you on a ride along, get a little excitement in your life. And it's really the sort of genesis of when Walter White, I guess, really started to put the puzzle pieces together and decided to eventually cook methamphetamine. Again, it was more of a recall here. Really, the sort of gears would have never really started to turn without the lung cancer diagnosis. At least that's the way I see this story for sure. But yeah, a great scene here, absolutely. And yeah, there's a scene here of Skyler and Walt in bed here, where she is how do I say this, manually stimulating him. And I definitely don't think this made the TV copy, that's for sure. I don't think this scene was in the TV copy, if I'm not mistaken. It's quite a long scene here where basically we just see the manual stimulation of Walter White by Skyler on his birthday. She's going through the eBay auction with the stuff she's selling on eBay as a sort of side hustle, if you will. Talk a little bit about, how Walt has to work at the car wash on Saturday. Just kind of re-emphasizing how not only does he work a full-time job and he has to work at the car wash after work, but he also... not Jay Ladybug, but he also, has to work there on the weekends as well. So, yeah, this scene, I believe, was definitely cut from the... was not on the TV copy, that's for sure. I definitely don't remember watching this scene the first time. But yeah, very long scene here, that's for sure. So... Quite a long scene here. Definitely a minute of this or two. But yeah, definitely not into it in the very beginning. But he needs some sort of I guess reassuring from Skyler here. So again, I don't know how much depth and sort of commentary I can provide to this scene. I guess if I really wanted to, I could. But yeah, just a sort of yeah, the comments sort of speak for themselves there in the chat. But yeah, following this, we really start to get the ball rolling here, that's for sure, where he passes out when I believe this is meant to be Gretchen, if I'm not mistaken. We never get a clear shot of her face here. I think this character here was meant to be Gretchen that Walt saw. I don't know if we ever saw a clear shot of this her face here. Also, I think she's driving a BMW here. This isn't the Bentley that she drove when we saw her come around in season 2 of Breaking Bad. So again, it's the pilot episode. I don't know if everything was established here, but I definitely think this was meant to be Gretchen. We see Walter White, kind of see her, if I'm not mistaken. I think this is who it was meant to be. Is it a Mercedes? Again, I'm not sure. I thought it was a BMW. Again, I think we can see a clear shot of the make and model here if I can find a yeah, it definitely looked like a BMW here, but I'm not 100% sure. But it definitely wasn't was it the, no, I don't think that was Carmen. Was that Carmen? I don't think that was Carmen. I thought it was meant to be Gretchen. We never get a clear shot of the face, but we see Walt basically collapse here on the grate when he is seeing this woman at the car wash. And it's unclear whether or not he wanted to approach her or not. But yeah, it's, again, we really get the ball rolling here for sure. And yeah, at Rich MC it was Lydia. I don't think it was Lydia. But yeah, we never get a clear shot of the face here, and I think it was meant to be Gretchen. With the benefit of hindsight, again at the time I didn't know it, but I think that was the point here of this scene. And of course, we then see Walt in the ambulance here, and this scene also was definitely cut from the TV copy. This scene definitely did not appear in the TV copy because we can see the I don't know what you would call this guy, the paramedic or the EMT. He asks Walt if he was a smoker, and the very first time I ever watched this series, I remember it wasn't until the episode entitled Cancer Man when Hank Schrader says to Walt, lung cancer, but you don't smoke. And it was not revealed to us prior to that Walter White wasn't a smoker. But here in the pilot episode, we do hear him say that yeah, at Stone Yoda, she has multiple cars. That makes a lot of sense. That's a pretty easy way to explain it there for sure. But he's asked if he's a smoker here, kind of, putting two and two together that his lungs don't sound very good. Uh, I kind of like the scene being omitted. I kind of like the flow of the TV copy here, where we just go from him collapsing to him here in the MRI machine to when we then see him at the doctor's office, completely zoning out, where he's diagnosed with the terminal lung cancer diagnosis. And yeah, just again, it's kind of funny too. But yeah, actually, in respect to something I talked about a little bit earlier in the stream, where when I first saw that Bryan Cranston, the goofy dad, if you will, from Malcolm in the Middle, was the star of the show. I don't know about you, but in so many scenes that I was watching of this pilot episode, I found myself almost laughing. Before I could really get in, yeah, you got mustard on your shirt. Before I could really get into this being Walter White, a completely new character with him just finishing starring in the show Malcolm in the Middle, I really saw Hal here in a lot of respects. I really saw Bryan Cranston as Hal here, and it took me actually a little bit of time before I could really see this character Walter White. Again, I don't know about you, but in hindsight, I kind of feel bad laughing about it. But I just found so much humor in so much of this opening episode, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that I had just watched Malcolm in the Middle and saw this actor here as that goofy dad Hal, who was again, dancing around in his underpants with his kids in Malcolm in the Middle. Yeah, Ladybug. Imagine if it was Matthew Broderick or John Cusack was another person that they wanted to cast for this character as well. So yeah, again, in hindsight, you couldn't imagine anyone else but Walter White portraying this character. That's for absolute sure. So, excuse me, you couldn't imagine anyone else but Bryan Cranston. I mean, impossible. Impossible to replace Bryan Cranston with anyone else with the benefit of hindsight, with having seen this entire series. But yeah, getting diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. This is, of course, the terminal. They also say it's inoperable here as well. Of course, this is contradicted with a second opinion that we hear about in season 2 of Breaking Bad. But yeah, at Kate Valentine, you saw Hal through the entire show. Again, I don't know about the entire show, but for definitely large swaths of season 1, at least the first couple episodes, I really saw Hal from Malcolm in the Middle. It's really kind of crazy to think about that in hindsight. But yeah, we hear that the lung cancer is inoperable. Again, I kind of find myself laughing here with this sort of him zoning out and him saying you have mustard on your shirt, not really sort of having the right set of emotions for the gravity of the news that was just told to him, that you have terminal lung cancer and you are going to die within a matter of years because it's inoperable. And of course, following this, we then see Walt return home to Skyler. The big question here is he going to tell Skyler about the cancer diagnosis? And of course, following them making small talk about him using the credit card to buy printer paper, even though he wasn't supposed to use that credit card, she then asks, "How was your day?" And Walt says, it was fine, just like a completely like any other day. Not going to tell my wife that I have terminal lung cancer, and really sort of displaying to us that Walt has other intentions here, as we clearly saw from the cold opening scene. But this is not a sort of man who is going to, do the traditional route in respect to getting diagnosed with cancer here. He definitely, in hindsight, the gears are really starting to turn here in respect to Walter White. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, we'll never know what was going on in Walter White's head, but I can only imagine the sort of gears that were turning, and when Walt really had this epiphany, aha moment where, well, again, I think it built over the course of this entire season. I mean, I can only imagine the thoughts that were going on in Walter White's head over the course of this entire season. And of course, it took a couple of days probably before he decided to quit his job at the car wash, team up with Jesse, go on that ride along, team up with Jesse Pinkman. But just, I truly, I mean, in hindsight, I think it's pretty clear that this was just a man who, for 50 years of his life did nothing, took no risks, took no chances. Really, and like he says, I believe in season 4 of Breaking Bad, that speech he gives when he's giving his when he's getting his lung cancer scan, where every life comes with a death sentence, live life on your own terms. And it's someone who really didn't do that for 50 years and really realizing he does not have that much time left on this earth. And what he decides to do with it is displayed to us over the course of this series. But yeah, just unbelievable scene here for sure. It's then juxtaposed with him, staring out into space. Again, I felt really bad here when this scene. In hindsight, I felt bad, but this scene here when Walt is just staring out into space, I just see Hal here again, like I talked about. I see Hal just being, glaring out into space, just almost like not even being able to comprehend his own problems. So yeah, just crazy, crazy, crazy for sure with the benefit of hindsight. Yeah, I like Years from Home. A lot of things going through his head. I mean, just the money, the fact that he's about to die and not leave his family with anything. And if he goes through this treatment like he talks about over the course of the season, he's just going to leave his family with nothing but lots of debt, which I believe he says in the episode entitled Cancer Man. But yeah, his situation is untenable here. At least he cannot just go on as he's been doing. He's been doing it too long to begin with. But yeah, great scene here where after we first see him after we first see Bogdan earlier in this episode tell him to do some wipe downs, and he absolutely acquiesces. Here he gives a much different answer of F you Bogdan, F you and your eyebrows, wipe down this as you say, Stone Yoda, that's for sure. So yeah, great scene here, absolutely. And yeah, I just absolutely it's a great scene. I mean, I've watched it again and again. It's hilarious. Wipe down this when he grabs his he grabs himself as Bogdan later says to Skyler when she wants to buy the car wash. So yeah, it's a great scene here for yeah, it's Stone Yoda. That's hilarious there for sure. But yeah, knocking down all of his air fresheners and things that he sells at the car wash, and he decides to quit here. And the balls are absolutely turning, or the gears are absolutely turning. The ball is absolutely rolling, as I was going to say. But yeah, great scene here. Absolutely great scene of Walt here in the car wash, that's for sure. Damn, Paul Sierra, you are harsh on Skyler, that is for sure. You you are absolutely harsh on Skyler. Again, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I have too much of an opinion on Skyler. Again, it's a pretty complex sort of relationship she has with Walt for sure. But yeah, that you're pretty tough on her. That's for sure. I see what you're saying there in respect to her getting mad about or him using a credit card to buy some printer paper. But then I guess priorities really change. I mean, I feel like that's the way a lot of people are. Maybe they're very reserved with spending money, but when it came to I guess when it comes to cancer treatment, I feel like most people are just they'll they'll just they'll swipe the credit card without even thinking. But yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying there about Skyler. So at Pulsura. Yeah, great scene here again. I mean, I wish I could sort of play all the music here, but yeah, even the way they sort of interjected music here. I mean, I think it was an original score here for the scene of him throwing matches in the pool. I mean, just great scene here where really just being contemplative here about his life, throwing matches in the pool. Again, we'd see that scene again in season 4 of Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled or no, season 3, excuse me, of Breaking Bad. I believe in the episode entitled what was that episode entitled? It was entitled No Mas. When we first see the cousins in season 3, following Skyler leaving him, him being very contemplative in retrospective, and again he calls Hank here and asks to go on the ride along, which we then see later in this episode. Again, another great scene here with again exemplifying the again gotta take care of this. Again, more exemplification of Hank Schrader's personality. We also get to see his partner, Steve Gomez. Again, was this not? What the? I think that was taken care of, so. But yeah, more exemplification here of Hank's personality. Great scene here that sets up the raid eventually of Emilio. And yeah, like I talked about in my review of the episode entitled Waterworks, it's pretty crazy, how this show really came full circle. And I only can imagine what I believe the actor's name was John Koyama. I can only imagine what he was thinking, how he literally dies in the pilot episode of Breaking Bad. And yes, he appears in the next episode as well, when as Stone Dioto. But yeah, he definitely appears in the next episode as well when he's chemically disincorporated, and we see his decomposing corpse fall through the ceiling. And yeah, we also see his again his bones being cleaned up in the third episode. In the bags in the river. But yeah, it's crazy to think how this show comes absolute full circle, where we see, Emilio here getting arrested by the DEA, and we then see him again being a client of Saul Goodman for the first time in the episode entitled Waterworks. So again, when you're watching this scene, there's no way you would ever think that, Emilio would ever come back like that. But yeah, just unbelievable scene here for sure, where we get to see Emilio getting busted by the DEA. We also see the foreshadowing here of Hank talking about Captain Cook. It's revealed to us, of course, following this bust of Emilio here. Again, there's a scene here that I kind of have to navigate around. And again, they don't show it. Again, there's YouTube probably not cool with this scene, but again, kind of skipping ahead here. But yeah, great scene here for sure in respect to, let's see if I can kind of get ahead here, But yeah, we again trying to find this. Again, yeah, I'm just gonna kind of navigate around this scene here. But yeah, it's revealed to us that Captain Cook is none other than this man Pinkman. So of course, like I was talking about a little bit earlier, I did wonder if this was initially his student Chad when I first watched the very beginning of this episode. But yeah, it was this new character Pinkman, who, again, hilarious scene here. I can't even really do it justice discussing it, where he's falling out of the window at the perfect time, following all the DEA agents and Hank and Steve Gomez entering the meth house, and we see Walt just being absolutely just perplexed here, almost flabbergasted, taken aback, just completely dumbfounded by Pinkman. Again, we don't know at the time that he's his former student, but of course he gives him the shush sign. He runs to his car and drives away, and we see the Captain Cook license plate, really sort of putting two and two together here that this is Captain Cook. And of course, Walt, of course, initially has this, brilliant idea where, of course, at the time, it's clearly with the benefit of hindsight, he knows that he already wants to cook methamphetamine, that's for sure. But again, this is just another sort of ace up his sleeve here, where yes, like he says to Jesse in the very next scene, you know the business and I know the chemistry, and it's true. Walter White knows absolutely nothing about the meth business. And again, with the benefit of hindsight, that's kind of ironic with him being this Heisenberg character. But yeah, it's kind of funny, I kind of think back to that speech that Saul Goodman gave in or I guess Jimmy McGill, in the finale of season 6 of Better Call Saul, in the episode entitled Saul Gone, where, he kind of said, I enabled Walter White. Without me, he would have been dead or in jail inside of a month. And you know what? I think you can kind of say the same about Jesse Pinkman as well. I really can feel that way as well, where Walt, just like Saul says, Walter White would not be Walter White without me. I think it's the same thing. Walter White would not have been Walter White without Jesse Pinkman. He was just as much of a part of this as Saul Goodman was when Saul Goodman took the sort of, I guess, what's the word? Really took the blame, took the fall for everything that happened with Walter White over the course of Breaking Bad, and all of the sort of pain and suffering that he inflicted. And Saul put that on himself, saying, I enabled him. I am culpable. I am part of all of this. And I would have to say, if you agree with what Saul said there in that speech, I would say the same goes for Jesse Pinkman for damn sure. Without Jesse, Walter White would not have been able to do what he did. Yeah, again, great scene here at Stone Dioto. Yeah, small speech. No speech is small speech. But yeah, he says to him, he threatens him here. Absolutely, he says, you know the business and I know the chemistry. Maybe we can partner up. Jesse is just absolutely perplexed. This is his former chemistry teacher from high school saying, you want to cook crystal meth? And Walt says to him, either that or I turn you in. And I know a lot of people use this as sort of the, what's the term I'm looking for here? To sort of justify the fact that Jesse even got involved with Walter White in the first place, how he was essentially blackmailed. And he truly was. He absolutely was blackmailed into into making methamphetamine with Walter White, because he would have had to turn himself into the police. And again, at this point in his life, he absolutely did not want to. And I guess that was truly his alternative. He could have, as Manuel Vargas said, he could have faced what he did, go to the police, face what you've done. But he kind of, takes Walter White's offer. I think I don't know if he's thinking too much about it here in this scene. To be completely honest, I don't know if he's really sort of thinking, I mean, there's no way he's going to turn himself in. And he really is like, all right, this guy's blackmailing me. He wants to cook methamphetamine with me. It's a crazy proposition. I can't believe, the nerdiest old dude I know, to sort of quote Jesse Pinkman from the next episode, wants to cook crystal meth with me, but my back's up against the wall here. I really don't have a choice unless I want to turn myself in. So that's the sort of reasoning behind, why Jesse Pinkman does what he does. And again, I don't know if I want to get into it too much. I mean, maybe it's something I'll discuss a little bit more in the future. But yeah, like I talked about, it's I know a lot. I mean, as kind of a little bit, the sort of, again, I don't know how you just don't view the story of Jesse Pinkman in the context of what Saul Goodman said at his plea deal hearing, where Saul basically said, I'm accountable for a lot of the evil that Walter White did. And I know Jesse Pinkman is as well. Again, I don't know if he feels that way. I don't know if he really views himself as a victim or what. But yeah, he absolutely had the opportunity to not do this. Like I talked about, he had so many opportunities to get out of all of this. But yeah, it's kind of a question that I'm going to grapple with for sure in respect to thinking back on this unbelievable show. That's for sure. But yeah, Jesse, with his back against the wall, decides to team up with Walter White because the alternative is truly jail. And like I've talked about, I guess he could have went to the police and said, this guy wanted to cook crystal meth with me. But again, it's his word against Walt's. There's no actual evidence. As Hank Schrader would eventually say, just Mr. Rogers with a lung tumor versus, the words of some junkie. And there is a lot of probably hard evidence against Jesse here. Especially if Emilio would drop a dime on him, and if 2 and 2 were put together that he was Captain Cook. So he really doesn't have an alternative here besides go to prison or go to jail, or team with Walter White. Again, we see a scene here of Skyler and Marie. Again, we see Skyler selling all of this stuff on eBay. A little bit of a discussion here back and forth, more kind of setting up a little bit more of the backstory of this family, where Marie's kind of saying Walt's been sort of more distant and aloof than usual. Skyler kind of chalking it up to a midlife crisis here. But yeah, again, sort of, saying turning 50 is a big sort of event in a man's life. And of course, what's crazy here is that this scene is immediately juxtaposed with the sort of, the midlife crisis that Marie is talking about. And, with this traditionally being, maybe buying a sports car or something like that. Instead, he's stealing chemistry equipment from the school lab at J.P. Wynn High School to eventually manufacture and distribute methamphetamine with a former student, Jesse Pinkman. So, yeah, quite the midlife crisis here, and I don't think that either one of those characters would ever anticipate that in a million years, just knowing Walt as long as they've known him. I mean, the irony of Hank Schrader being a DEA agent as well. But yeah, it's quite a funny scene here with the benefit of hindsight. Yeah, that's a good point as well. Light years from home, that Jesse, Walt. It's ironic how Walt probably would have, as Saul said, Walter White would have been dead or in prison within a month if he never met me. And yeah, again, it's a lot of sort of it's almost like a tripod of support, if you will, where Jesse probably would have went to a prison eventually as well. Maybe it's possible. I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, I really don't think Jesse would have done anything but cook methamphetamine, even if he didn't meet Walter White. I mean, there's a great scene in season 3 of Breaking Bad following the death of Jane, where Jesse keeps listening to the answering machine over and over and over again. And even after all of those trials and tribulations, and his girlfriend dying of a heroin overdose, at least that's what he believes. Well, it was a heroin overdose. He didn't know that Walt could save her. Going to rehab, everything that happened in his life, all of that stuff. He finally got his money. He could have moved on with his life. Even after all of that, he decides to go back and cook methamphetamine. So yeah, I tend to agree at light years from home. I think irrespective of Walter White ever coming in his life, I think, I really don't see Jesse Pinkman doing anything else with his life but cook methamphetamine. At least at that point. I mean, I don't know if he had a lot of those sort of aha epiphanies of doing things he wanted to do with his life as a result of Walter White. And yeah, I mean, it's very sort of it's very nuanced and complex, if you will, just the sort of the way Walter White impacted his life and the sort of life that it caused him to lead. But yeah, I really just based on the story that was displayed to us over the course of Breaking Bad, I really don't see Jesse doing anything else with his life. I'm not. I don't really see it. Um, a lot of, again, like I said, ironically, a lot of his epiphanies came as a result of him working with Walter White. But you wonder. I mean, you wonder if it was just a matter of if, not when, he ends up getting caught. I mean, I feel like most low-level drug dealers end up getting caught. It's you know, occupational hazard, to quote Saul Goodman. But yeah, a lot of food for thought there for sure. But yeah, great scene here. Again, I love the scene here. I love even the music that they overlay when Walt's sort of displaying all this equipment to Jesse. I mean, I could do it. I can't even really do it justice. Him talking about the equipment and really sort of displaying to him how little he knows about the true chemistry of making methamphetamine versus the just the unbelievable amount of knowledge that Walter White has in respect to this. Again, it's just basic chemistry, as he says, when they finally cook their first batch of meth. We see the ball rolling here in respect to where they're going to cook. They're going to use the sort of recreational vehicle, a Winnebago, to go way out in the boonies. Again, I think this is an extended scene as well. The TV copy didn't get every single piece of dialogue here. I think a little bit of the scene here that was displayed in the garage was not displayed to us in the TV copy. I think there's a little bit of dialogue that was cut in order to make it fit into that 1 hour window. But yeah, Jesse sort of puts the idea of an RV in his head, going wild in the boonies, you know, being all sort of evasive, you know, in the middle of nowhere where there's really not going to be any police to hassle them. And that's what they decide to do. You know, Walter walks into the credit union and withdraws basically his life savings, which I believe is not even $7,000. And yeah, he tells Jesse to buy the RV. And of course, even though Jesse's being blackmailed and he's going through this plan, he's yet to confront him. And he finally does here in the scene and says, "Tell me why you're doing all of this. Like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. Why are you going about all of this?" And he says to him, "Why do you do it?" And Jesse, you know, very, you know, subtle, very, you know, assertively responds, "Money mainly." And then Walt says, "Yeah, me too." And then Jesse says, "No, I don't see it. You know, some stiff like you, giant stick up his ass, you know, never did a bad thing in his life. At what age, 60, decides you're going to break bad?" And then Walt, of course, says, "I'm 50. He says, "You know, it just doesn't compute." And it's true. Walt is not telling him the full story here. Jesse is being blackmailed here. He's going through all the steps. He's doing what he's being told to do, but it doesn't make any sense. He's like, "Why are you doing this? You know, are you crazy or depressed or something? Like, this is something I need to know about. That affects me." And of course, yes, as Light Years from Home says, a great line here, "I am awake." And of course, Jesse just says, "What? Like what does that even mean? That doesn't even mean anything. What are you even talking about? What is happening here? You're my former high school chemistry teacher. You want to cook methamphetamine with me? What is going on? Like, none of this computes." And yeah, he says, "Buy the RV. We start tomorrow." So yeah. Unbelievable scene here. Absolutely love this scene. Of course, at the time, it then, of course, eventually pans again after the scene in the clothing store, which takes place. But when they finally get out to the boonies to cook methamphetamine, of course, at the time we never truly knew where they got the RV from. I at the time just thought they bought it, but of course we then learn in season 3 of a Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled Moss, that you know. He actually never bought the RV, and it was stolen from his friend Kambo's mother during the cold opening scene of that episode, where it was then revealed to us. Again, a very crucial part of that storyline that's going on over the course of season 3 of Breaking Bad. But yeah, very sort of a great scene here. One of my favorite scenes in this episode. And of course, we then sort of see the scene here of Walter Jr. at the clothing store with him buying clothes with his parents. He's, of course, then being bullied by these, I guess, kids, if you will, young adults, bullying him because of his disability. Definitely not, you know, pretty, you know, not great stuff there for sure. Kind of, you know, very sort of, you know, not great stuff to sort of bully people for, you know, things they can't control. You know, a typical sort of, you know, almost like 80s movie bully, if you will. But of course, the main premise of the scene here is to really display to, again, Walt sees them bullying Walter Jr. He tells Skyler is about to go up to them to confront them, likely using her words. Of course, Walt says, don't. Skyler's very taken aback. Walt goes around the back. Skyler really not sure what's going on, why Walt just sort of walked out the back, and of course we then see the great scene here when the main bully, if you will, is sort of letting his guard down. Walt comes through the front of the store after leaving through the back and kicks him in the back of his leg, right around the I don't even know what that's called, like your back knee calf joint. And yeah, again, without getting into sort of the all the nitty gritty dialogue here in the scene, again, really sort of. Yeah, light years from home. Great sort of, great sort of point there. You call it the first step towards a Heisenberg. But yeah, like I said, it's really a man with nothing to lose. And it's something that this character would have never done prior to his terminal lung cancer diagnosis. I mean, never in a million years. But again, this is a completely different man who has nothing to lose at this point, who is not going to take shit from anybody anymore. That's kind of sort of my reading of the scene here, where we sort of see him defend his son in a manner which he would have never done. I mean, that's sort of my sort of reading here of this scene. He would have never done this in a million years. He would have never defended his son like this. But yeah, great scene here where he basically says, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that scene in The Dark Knight with the Joker, where he's telling Batman to, hit me, hit me. So that's kind of the main premise here of this scene for sure, where we sort of see the sort of new the new Walter White following his cancer diagnosis, how it truly, really flipped a switch, an immediate switch, and just ignited something completely different in Walter White's mind. And in reality, a lot of this was vibrato, and the true sort of Heisenberg persona has to craft over the course of 5 full seasons of Breaking Bad. He makes a lot of mistakes himself, as he says in the episode, I believe entitled Mandela, if I'm not mistaken. It's always 1 step forward and 2 steps back, so there's a lot of learning curve in respect to all of this, and like Walter White says, if it wasn't for him, he probably would be, in prison or dead within a month. But yeah, really displaying to us the how this terminal lung cancer diagnosis has completely changed this man. That's a great quote there for sure, at Just Dan. But yeah, we finally get to the scene here of them cooking methamphetamine in the same spot where, again, very ironically, the Empire is going to come crashing down in the episode entitled Ozymandias. And yeah, of course, great dialogue here. I can't do it justice, where, the cow house dialogue, and Jesse's like, yeah, we're in the middle of nowhere, let's cook here. A lot of humor interjected into this scene for sure, with the Walt, taking off his clothes and disrobing, kind of saying, these are my good clothes, I can't go home smelling like a meth lab. Jesse says, why not? I do. Great scene here, a lot of humor here for sure. Kind of setting up the eventual montage scene that takes place in this episode as well. But yeah, at testing 1 2 3, cow house have me dead. Yeah, that's a hilarious scene there for sure. But yeah, great montage scene here for sure. The very first time that Walt and Jesse ever cook, and yeah, it's unbelievable. I can't do it justice. I love a good montage scene. I've said it again and again. But yeah, just unbelievable scene here for sure. Of Walt and Jesse cooking methamphetamine. A really cool scene here. I mean, when I first watched this, I was just so immersed in this. I watched the scene again and again. I thought this was just an unbelievable scene here. Love the utilization of the time lapse here to display to us this montage, because of course it would take, I think, hours probably. I mean, again, to cook a pound of methamphetamine, yeah, it probably would take less than a day. I remember back in or later in season 2 of Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled 4 days out, they're spending multiple days there, but they're cooking pounds and pounds and pounds of methamphetamine. So yeah, I mean, I guess it displayed to us that it was less than a day in which they could cook methamphetamine. And of course, the great sort of payoff here is when Jesse's looking at this methamphetamine here from the very first time they cook. While he's initially being blackmailed into doing this, we can see the gears turning in the same way they sort of turned for Saul Goodman, in my opinion. We really see Jesse becoming just sort of infatuated with this, saying this is glass grade, this is the best meth I've ever seen, this is art, this is absolutely unbelievable. And despite Jesse, again, being blackmailed here, like I said, at this very point, Walter White's hands are dirty. He absolutely committed a felony by creating this Schedule II controlled substance. And if Jesse wanted to get out of this circumstance, he absolutely could have. There's no way Walt can blackmail him anymore. He could literally leave here. He's like, all right, again, it's kind of like what Saul said to Jeff in the episode entitled Nippy, where you committed a felony, where if you turn me in, we're all going down. And Jesse could have thought the exact same way. You just committed a felony. There's all this evidence. Your fingerprints are all over everything. If you ever turn me in, I'm going to turn you in as well, and you don't want that. But Jesse did not do that. He was absolutely tantalized and infatuated with this methamphetamine in the exact same way Saul Goodman was. Jesse Pinkman was seeing the dollar signs in his head in this moment, at least in my humble interpretation of the scene, in the same way that Saul Goodman did when he first walked into that RV, when we saw that flashback scene in the episode entitled Breaking Bad in Season 5 of Better Call Saul. So it's kind of ironic in hindsight where Jesse and Saul's reactions were the exact same. They saw Walter White, they saw opportunity. And again, I know Saul Goodman did not paint himself as he did not paint himself as a victim in the finale of Better Call Saul and said, I did all of these things, I am culpable, I should be punished. But again, I'm not sure if Jesse Pinkman sort of sees himself the same way. I don't know. And it's very ironic because they sort of, again, his reaction, in my opinion, was the exact same as Saul Goodman's in Better Call Saul Season 6. The exact same. He saw opportunity. He absolutely could have gotten out if he wanted to. But like I talked about a little bit earlier, he would have just cooked methamphetamine anyway. So why not work with the best? You know, I'm a meth cook. That's all I'm really going to do with my life, at least at this point. So he was absolutely tantalized, just like everyone else who engaged with Walter White. Same with Gustavo Fring, who, yes, he knew the sort of dangers and the sort of the randomness and the lack of certainty and all of the what's the word I'm looking for? All of the risks that came with potentially teaming up with Walter White. But again, he was too tantalized by, again, I don't know if it's the money per se, but again, it was sort of the money as part of his myopic revenge against the cartel and the Salamanca. So yeah, Walter White, when people see Walter White, it's almost like the again, I don't know if this is the best analogy, but it's kind of like the siren song in Greek mythology, if you will. So yeah, again, I just really don't see a great amount of difference from Jesse to Saul when they first meet Walter White, but that's just sort of my opinion. But yeah, following this, where Jesse's saying, I need to have a taste of this, sort of displaying to us that he's a user as well. Wall, of course, saying we use, we only sell, we don't use. You know, Jesse says, since when? You've seen too many after-school specials, you know, something like that. But yeah, he then, Walt again then says, how do we proceed? You know, I can make this, you know, wonderful methamphetamine. Like he says, it's just basic chemistry. It's rather easy. I mean, no offense to meth distributors, but if they can do it, you can only imagine the quality that a trained chemist who's as much of a genius as Walter White can make this product in the way that he does. So again, no offense, but if junkies can do it, I mean, it can't be that hard to kind of paraphrase Walter White in respect to him saying it's just basic chemistry. So, but yeah, Jesse then says, I know exactly the person to show this to, and we get the very first instance of Crazy 8 here in this episode. And yeah, like I talked about in a lot of my videos I made about Better Call Saul, prior to Better Call Saul, the story being displayed to us in Season 5, I believe in the episode entitled The Guy for This. Again, with the benefit of hindsight, like after watching Better Call Saul, I was kind of, and as well as Breaking Bad, with the whole story of the cartel being displayed to us, I kind of really didn't understand how Tuco would replace Crazy 8. It didn't make any sense with Tuco being El Salamanca and with him being in much higher standing in the cartel. But again, like I talked about, the sort of scene that takes place in the episode entitled Crazy Handful of Nothing, where Jesse Pinkman says that Tuco replaced Crazy 8. I think we can chalk that up to just Jesse Pinkman's lack of knowledge of the inner workings of the cartel. And it's definitely sort of with the benefit of hindsight. We didn't know it at the time, but Crazy 8 had deep cartel connections here. He really did. His time went all the way back to Better Call Saul when he was a low-level dealer working with Nacho and with Hector Salamanca and with Lalo and with Tuco. He had very, very deep cartel connections. And again, you kind of wonder what was going through his head this entire time, where Lalo meets his demise, where Nacho meets his demise, and he lasts until 2008. I mean, that all those deaths take place in 2004, and he lasts about 4 years longer. So again, I would just imagine that he was having, he was working his way up in the cartel. He's probably one of the highest ranking members, working underneath Tuco, maybe. Again, we'll never sort of know if he was working under Tuco. The dialogue of when Tuco got out of jail, it's a little bit confusing. We don't know the exact sort of parameters of everything in respect to the backstory of the cartel. But yeah, just kind of interesting with the benefit of hindsight here, where Crazy 8 was in the cartel. He was, and again, he has this nice home here. And for 4 years prior to his death, he was probably living a pretty good cartel life with the benefit of hindsight, and with it just being kind of ironic in respect to Crazy 8's story that was originally displayed to us in the plot of Breaking Bad. Yeah, at Stone Yoda, absolutely. He was a CI, confidential informant, and you wonder because again, Saul told Lalo in respect to that Crazy 8 was a CI, and if you hear that he's a snitch, he's not. He's your snitch. But again, following Lalo's death, you do wonder if again, you'd imagine. I mean, 4 years is a very long time. You'd imagine that all that information was told to the sort of the sort of heads of the cartel, and was told to everyone who was again. You would imagine that Gus Fring had some sort of relationship with Crazy 8. Again, we don't know. We know how, at the same time he was working with the Salamancas, and he was likely working under Tuco, but it wasn't really revealed to us the entire story. So yeah, kind of a really sort of interesting backstory here, and we could really sort of fill in a lot of the blanks here in respect to what was going on in Crazy 8's life for those 4 years that he was working with the cartel. So yeah, really sort of interesting backstory here for sure. All the sort of holes were filled in the episode entitled Better Call Saul. We see Jesse trying to, I guess, sell him his methamphetamine here. That's funny. At Pulsar, I didn't know that. I appreciate that anecdote right there. I did not know that. That's kind of a pretty cool. That's a cool anecdote there for sure. I was not aware of that. It's kind of funny to hear all those sort of nitty gritty stories about the filming of this episode. But yeah, great scene here where he shows this super high quality methamphetamine. We also see Crazy 8 sort of test the meth here as well, being a user of it. So yeah, you wonder maybe a little bit of an influence of Tuco here with someone who also used methamphetamine as well. So definitely maybe showing to us what was going on in Crazy 8's life for those 4 years following all that happened at the end of Better Call Saul. Crazy 8, again, they talk about Emilio here, him accusing Emilio of Jesse of diming on Emilio. But of course, the grand irony of this is, I guess, that Crazy 8 technically snitched on his own cousin. That's revealed to us later in this season. So yeah, just a lot of sort of puzzle pieces that are put together here in this scene where Crazy 8's, I guess, turns in his own cousin, and but at the same time he gets bailed out because of Saul, but he doesn't know it, and he goes back to Crazy 8. You would wonder how Emilio would feel if he found out that Crazy 8 dimed on his own cousin. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting sort of premise here, where Crazy 8 clearly has cartel connections, but at the same time his cousin's not working with him in the cartel. His cousin's more working with Jesse. So you sort of wonder that sort of relationship there with him being cousins with Crazy 8, but him working with Jesse outside of the cartel. And like, what was Crazy 8 standing within the cartel? A lot of questions here that were never answered, of course. And again, I was hoping we would maybe get a lot of these questions answered, but with the benefit of hindsight, Better Call Saul was never about the creators displaying to us every little piece of unknown story from the plot of Breaking Bad. It was just the story of Jimmy and Kim, and with the benefit of hindsight, all of the non-Jimmy and Kim story revolving around the cartel was just the sort of what was going on in the background when Jimmy and Kim were in a relationship. And once that relationship terminated, there was really no need to see, at least with the premise of what Better Call Saul was as a story, there was no longer a need to see what was going on with the cartel. So yeah, pretty a lot of questions here for sure. Why was Emilio working with Jesse? He clearly was diming on Emilio because I guess he and Jesse had customers that the cartel didn't have, and he was trying to snake their customers because Crazy 8 worked with the cartel, but his cousin didn't. So yeah, a lot of questions here that will never be answered. Unless there's another sort of spin-off iteration, which will maybe happen, but probably won't. But yeah, it's kind of really interesting to watch this with the benefit of hindsight, with Better Call Saul's story being completely wrapped up. Of course, him trying to pin the diming of Emilio on Jesse with a lot of vibrato saying, that's BS. If you see Emilio, you tell him for me. Of course, he says to him, why don't you tell him yourself? He made bail this morning. Emilio, of course, saying, kick my ass, pendejo. And, Crazy 8 basically saying, where'd you get this? Because I know your punk ass didn't cook it. And then it's then revealed to us that, it's heavily implied to us that Jesse told Crazy 8 and Emilio everything. They go to the cook spot where they cook. He's Crazy 8 brings the money with him. Where did Jesse get his hat? That's true. We don't know. Again, so we can do an entire spinoff on where he got his hat. Absolutely, at Richie MC. I see what you did there. We can do an entire spinoff on that for sure. So. But yeah, great scene here where initially Crazy 8 wants to do business with Walter White. And again, it's kind of ironic because with the benefit of hindsight, everyone who does business with Walter White basically ends up dead. But of course, Crazy 8, again, a little bit of luck is involved here for sure. But again, with the benefit of hindsight, Crazy 8 has no way of knowing just how dangerous this man is that he wants to do business with. Where, he's basically saying, you cook very good crystal, why don't you work for me? And Walt's saying, I'll be willing to sell it to you if the price is right. Yeah, a lot of great dialogue interjected here. So much comedy interjected on top of this drama. That's for absolute sure. But yeah, so with the benefit of hindsight, it is the sort of this sort of metaphor of a Walter White like being a cancer who infects everyone who's around him and ends up sort of taking over all of these people and inflicting them with the cancer that he himself has. With that metaphor, also with the Heisenberg sort of uncertainty principle, where this is a man where you can't really sort of predict what's going to happen next. He really doesn't even have a set of values that he lives by, kind of like Mike and Gus sort of do. And he'll really say anything to save himself. And again, with the benefit of, hindsight, Crazy 8 have no way of knowing how dangerous of a man this is. And of course, while he's not a true, I guess, gangbanger, if you will, to use Hank Schrader's terminology, with when Emilio finds out that, remembers him from being on the ride along and thinking that he's a Fed and that they're being set up or something to that effect. And of course, Emilio and Crazy 8 with there really being no other choice other than prison, with them thinking they're in this situation. They have to, I guess, kill Walter White here because they think he's a Fed. But of course, Walt then saying, I'll teach you my recipe if you let me live. And again, what's so crazy here is that Walter White just comes across as so unintimidating here. I mean, he's this middle-aged man who, again, is wearing no clothes. He's wearing this green apron. Again, to kind of quote Lalo Salamanca, kind of looks like a librarian. Very, very non-threatening here. And again, it really kind of causes, I think, Emilio and Crazy 8 to really let their guard down here, where they think, of course, we're in control of this situation. We know what's going on. But of course, with the benefit of hindsight, they're absolute hubris here, where they're just going in here, watching how Walt cooks his meth without, being completely blindsided by the fact that Walt is about to murder these two people that are holding him hostage. Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up at Stone Yoda. You say, these are my favorite moments in the show where you have no idea how a wimp like Walt can get away from these dangerous situations. Yeah, he, like how Saul used his mouth and his ability to talk, as Tuco Salamanca said to him in the episode entitled Mijo, Wow, You Got a Mouth on You. Walt uses his intellect and his science to get out of these terrible situations. So again, these two characters have no idea that they are about to meet their demise, that Walt is about to combine red phosphorus with moisture with the acceleration of heat to create phosphine gas, like he talked about earlier in this episode on his ride along with Hank Schrader. Again, they let their guard down here. Great scene here where you wonder how in the world is Walt going to get out of this situation, and really sort of foreshadowing how he gets out of a lot of situations over the course of the series using his science and his intellect, where he creates the phosphine gas, he creates this explosion, and he effectively kills both of these characters. And again, with the benefit of hindsight, I believe that Vince Gilligan talked about this on a Better Call Saul Insider podcast, and the sort of context was sort of changing the initial story, where at the time when this was written, those two characters were absolutely dead in the RV. When it was written into the pilot, these were two dead characters. But of course, in the very next episode, we learned that one of them survived. And that was not the initial intention by the writers and the creators when they wrote this episode, but just based on the story, I'm looking at Walt's face here, it's quite the face here, it made me laugh. But just based on the story that they wanted to tell following this episode, they changed the initial story that was written for these two characters. So yeah, a great scene here where Walter White kills these two characters. He avoids the gunfire while they're basically suffocated to death. We then see him driving erratically. The forest fire is started by Emilio's cigarette, and he's driving erratically, and it then picks up at the scene that we saw at the very beginning of this episode. And of course, yeah, a lot of me at first, I thought this was the police sirens, and you think Walter White's like, all right, this is it, the police are coming, like it's over, it's absolutely over here. But I done effed up, Again, you wonder what was going through Walter White's mind here. Again, based on his actions of him trying to again to use a vivid Kiwi term here, where he attempts to unalive himself. To use a term that I know the Vivid Kiwi used due to the YouTube algorithm. But yeah, we clearly know what's going through his head here. He thinks the police are coming. He thinks that, again, it's very irrational. He's probably not thinking very clearly here. How would the police even know? Were there any gunshots or anything like that? Wouldn't it make a lot more sense that it was the fire department coming for the fire that was started because of the cigarette and the brush fire? But yeah, he's not thinking irrationally here, and he absolutely tries to end it all. So yeah, at Stone Yoda, absolutely. If he absolutely, again, it's true, and also a lot of the sort of story comes full circle where the doctor initially says to him, best case scenario with chemo, you'll live another year or so, and that's what he ends up living in the end anyway. He ends up living 2 more years. So again, that's also very poetic as well, where the story comes full circle, where Walt ends up living 2 more years. He ends up going out by gunfire, even though he didn't hear in this episode. And yeah, after the gun misfires, he absolutely changes his mind and decides to be resigned to his fate here. Again, great shot here where he just, pulls out the, if I can try to find the exact, it's hard to get the exact sort of frame here, but yeah, where he just sort of, puts his hands in the air and says, I give up. I absolutely give up. I'm going to face these consequences of my actions. So, of course, his demeanor absolutely changes following him realizing that this was the fire department and not the police department, and him putting the gun behind his back here and realizing that I guess my sort of the things that I was thinking in my head were not true, and I don't think I do want to unalive myself, to use the Vivid Kiwi term. So yeah. Great scene here for sure when we see the fire department. We then see Jesse regain consciousness after he was passed out after he hit his head on a rock. He said, what'd you do to those guys? Walt then tells that he made the phosphine gas with the red phosphorus in the presence of moisture with the acceleration of heat yields phosphine gas. One whiff and poof, you're done. We then see him vomit, and he says, we got to clean this up. And my goodness gracious, again, we then see him, of course, washing the money here, him saying we got to clean this up. He washes the money that was rolling around the floor and was covered in all of the sort of meth, the liquid from meth runoff. We then see him return home at the end of that day following everything he did. He then proceeds to be intimate with his wife, Skyler. Thus ending the first episode of this universe, and my goodness did I love this episode. I mean, how could you just not absolutely be hooked after watching this first episode? I mean, I was absolutely hooked. I mean, I couldn't wait to watch the next episode. How could you not want to just, how in the world, what happens next? I mean, all of the questions that were going through in my mind when I first watched this was just an unbelievable episode, bar none. My goodness gracious did I love this episode. But yeah, I mean, it was I just, after following this, I think like the rest of everyone else, I just binged through these first 3 seasons that were on Netflix in 2012 at the time, and I absolutely fell in love with the story. My goodness, just what a great story. I mean, I can't get over the fact of, I don't know if Vince Gilligan knew at the time when he was writing this, this unbelievable premise that really, hadn't been done before. This high school chemistry teacher who gets diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, who decides to sell methamphetamine by using his just intellect and genius in order to try to provide for his family. And then, of course, over the course of this season, we really get into the depths of just Walter White's knowledge and his backstory, working with gray matter and the true level of his intellect, and being this person who, yes, was incredibly intelligent, had all these opportunities, but for whatever reasons really didn't take those risks in life, even though he had those opportunities. He could have taken a more riskier route in his life, but he decided to sort of play things the safe route. And of course, the light switch that was the terminal lung cancer diagnosis at age 50, I guess completely changed everything, and the rest is history. So yeah, just an unbelievable show here. I mean, I love this episode. I've seen it again. I've probably seen it over a dozen times. I just absolutely love this show, and like I said, I could talk about it forever and forever. So Chris Teneros, hey Anton, when did you start watching Breaking Bad? I believe I started on season 5 when it was airing, and it was so good too. Yeah, I talked about this a little bit earlier. I started watching back in 2012 after season 4 of Breaking Bad finished airing on television. I binged the first 3 seasons on Netflix. Following that, they didn't have season 4 on, but I saw that they aired season 4 on TV. So what I did was I didn't even have a credit card at the time. I went out to Walmart after I watched season 3. I bought an iTunes gift card with cash, and I bought season 4 of Breaking Bad, and I binged all of that. And then I and then I started watching Breaking Bad on television for part 1 of season 5, Live Free or Die. That's the very first episode I watched during the air on television. But yeah, at Chris Nero, I've definitely watched it more than 10 times as well. But yeah, just unbelievable episode. Again, I love the show. I mean, it was so easy to get immersed into it. All I wanted to do was just find out what happens next. I was absolutely blown away with this show. And like I said, the rest is, excuse me, the rest is history. And yeah, like I talked about, season 1 has a very special place in my heart, if you will. I truly love this episode. I love this season. It's one of my favorite seasons for sure. I mean, I love the pilot. I love Cats in the Bag, Bags in the Bags in the River, Cancer Man, Gray Matter, Crazy Handful of Nothing, and a No Rough Stuff type deal. I mean, season 1 was so great. I mean, it might be my favorite. It might be my favorite season of Breaking Bad. Definitely an underrated season for sure. I love season 2 as well, but yeah, it's unbelievable. So yeah, at Stone Yoda, yeah, right on. Me too. Back in 2012, streaming really wasn't what it was right now. I mean, there were a few streaming services. I mean, Netflix was really a big thing, but there really wasn't the competition like it is now. Streaming was nothing like it was. I mean, back in 2012, I mean, I think you could still get like DVDs in the mail from Netflix. I mean, crazy world. I mean, crazy even think that people would do anything other than just streaming. I mean, who wants a physical copy of something after you're done watching it? What do you do with it? Just, you store it on the shelf and it takes up space. Why not just store it on the cloud? So, yeah, I mean, I absolutely love this show. I love talking about it. And yeah, I guess the plan for this to sort of break down every single episode. I think that's kind of the plan. I mean, we'll see how this goes. Like I talked about, this definitely not going to be every day. I may break one down tomorrow maybe, but it's definitely not going to be every single day. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to talk about. It's something that I love to do anyway. And yeah, it's I sort of I sort of can't wait to sort of give my sort of ideas and perspectives on this season. So. Wow, that's Cyclops Centurion. Yeah, did you mention? I think someone mentioned that for sure. But yeah, I mean, I can only imagine the OGs who were watching season 1 of Breaking Bad on TV. That is something right there. Back in '08, you were watching Breaking Bad on TV. That is something, because again, it really didn't even take off. And to kind of skip ahead a little bit here, season 2 of Breaking Bad was absolutely setting up a finale. That's why they had all those black and white shots of of uh, again the pink bear and Walter White's glasses and all of these sort of ominous things where you wondered what was going on. And I think after it was renewed for another season, I think that's how they sort of wrote the plane crash into it. Because I think if the show got canceled, they were sort of planning to have a more typical finale, a more sort of dramatic finale, and that's why they had all of those sort of black and white scenes initially written there. But of course, at the end, the sort of Wayfair crash was sort of to display to us just the broad-reaching, unintended consequences of Walter White's actions. But yeah, just a unbelievable show for sure. And yeah, yeah, it's crazy at at Cyclops Centurion. That's crazy. Yeah, I've definitely met a couple people. Not a lot. I met a couple people in my life who said they started watching it on TV back in season 1. But yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine people saying Breaking Bad, never heard of that show, never heard of it. So again, you don't know what's going to catch on. Like I talked about, for whatever reason, Better Call Saul never became the cultural phenomenon that Breaking Bad was. It just never did. I mean, I'm not sure about the exact reason why. I don't know if you can predict sort of, popular culture and where it's going to go. But yeah, just a crazy sort of lightning in a bottle sort of show that I absolutely loved, and also was incredibly. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, even like everyone watched this show. I mean, back when season 2 was starting, I mean, everyone was just binging it. When part 2 of season 5 was starting, I mean, everyone was just binging it and sort of trying to catch up to get to the finale. And I remember just, I feel like every single person watched that show. I mean, nowadays there's so much television out there. I mean, like I said, I don't think every single person has seen every single show out there, but I felt like everyone watched Breaking Bad. It was just unbelievable. It was such a cultural phenomenon. But yeah. So yeah, like I said, I think I'm gonna have to wrap it up there. But yeah, really enjoyed talking about this episode for sure. And yeah, I'm gonna put my thoughts out there in respect to this in respect to the series. Kind of nice to make some content and put it out there. Again, I really love the fact that it's something that I really enjoy talking about. Like I said, I can talk about this again and again and again. And like I said, if you want to come along for the ride and check this out for however long, I'd really, I really appreciate that. And I really, almost a little bit taken aback by how, people like my perspective on this show. So yeah, I really appreciate it at Chris Scenarios. So yeah, at Kate Valentine, yeah, that is the plan to break down these episodes. And again, we'll see what sort of happens here. So, it's, again, I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to do all these. They definitely won't be every single day. But yeah, I'll definitely, sort of post on the community tab when I'm going to review all these episodes. But yeah, we'll see what happens here. Again, I'm definitely planning on talking about I'll definitely plan on talking about the next episode, Cats in the Bag, in the days to come. Maybe even tomorrow. Again, we'll see. Again, like I talked about, my the way my sort of schedule is now. I'm so busy all the time, and like I said, I really sometimes just don't have the time, or even just the sort of almost like motivation just to after being just immersed in what you're doing in your life all day, to sort of just then sit in front of a computer screen and just, again, it's mostly just editing. Like 99, not 99, but 90% of a YouTube video is just editing. So at Richie MC, I have not seen The Wire yet. I am way behind on that, but I'm actually very intrigued by this show Barry. I've heard a lot of good things about that. I definitely am planning on watching the show Barry. Like I said, I don't know if I'll cover it on my channel. I may. Again, even after now, I mean, I've covered shows that weren't Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and I know it's possible to cover them, and like I said, maybe I'm just being a little bit jaded here or something, and maybe I just, I wish that I had the passion to cover other shows like I do about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, because, I mean, it's almost not even really it comes so much easier for me because I truly enjoy these shows, and some of the other shows that I've covered on this channel, not a lot, but again, the passion just wasn't there, and again, this is just, yeah, I truly enjoy just, talking about this show. It really never gets old. But yeah, I'm definitely sort of intrigued about Barry. Yeah, I mean, I've heard, again, great things about Mr. Robot. Again, there's so much there's so many great shows out there. But at the same time, I almost feel like, I don't know, I just feel like it's kind of hard for me to talk about a show. Again, I know I'll never be an expert in a show like I am with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, but yeah, we'll see. There's so much good TV out there, and if I ever am at a point in my life where I'm just able to watch all these shows that I've never watched, I've never seen The Wire, I've never seen Mr. Robot, I've never seen The Sopranos. There's so many shows I haven't seen, but I guess there's at some point. I mean, if I ever have this point in my life, I mean, there's so much great TV out for me to watch. So maybe at some point in my life, I'll really get to experience and enjoy all that. But yeah, like I said, I think I'm gonna have to wrap it up there. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate the super chat. I really appreciate the discussion tonight. Like I said, always love talking about this show. Always love hearing people's perspectives about this show. I love streaming, and it's kind of cool. I like talking about this content. So yeah, like I said, not sure when these are gonna happen, but every day that I do one of these, I will post in the community tab when I'm gonna go live. Yeah, The Sopranos, another show I've never seen that I will, hopefully at some point in my life enjoy. But yeah, again, if you want to hear me talk about this show and come along for the ride, you are more than welcome to do so. I will definitely give a heads up in the community post tab prior to me doing these. Again, I don't know when they're going to happen. They're not going to, and when they might be a little bit random when I do them. But yeah, it was a great discussion tonight. I really appreciate everyone for tuning in. Have a great rest of your Monday if you're in the United States. And have a great evening and have a great week. And I'll see you guys around. Really enjoyed talking about Better Call Saul tonight. All right. I said Better Call Saul. It got caught in my head. Really enjoyed talking about Breaking Bad as well as Better Call Saul and the contents of this episode tonight. Take care. Have a good one.